Sponsored by บางจาก Sustainable Business Development in Harmony with the Environment and Society.
A community of connectivity is really meaningless without a concrete implementation of policies on infrastructural development. Without the most basic infrastructure such as roads, connectivity is nothing. Considering the mainland Southeast Asia, how we can actually take a full advantage of countries' national borderlines. Connectivity through decent infrastructures will fuse together like the flow of trade, investment, tourism, as well as aspects that keep money as well as business activities moving forward. That is actually the main purpose of the ASEAN Economic Community, a single base of production. The most ambitious goal, which is intended to become the tangible, is the connection of mainland ASEAN into India. And now we have a chance to interview the former Deputy Minister of Commerce and a Member of Parliament as well as the President of the Thai-Burmese Business Council, Kun Alongkorn Ponlaboot, with key aspects relating to how to make community of connectivity a reality.
ในปี 2552 นะครับตอนที่ประเทศไทยได้เป็นประธานอาเซียน
Back in 2009, during the government of Prime Minister Abhisit Vejchajiva, we had already foreseen the next step of ASEAN, which would not be contained only within the ASEAN community, but also would be laying down platform of connecting the ASEAN region with others. Thus, the community of connectivity was declared in a joint communique during the ASEAN summit in Hua Hin, Thailand that year. This was actually how the community of connectivity stemmed from. Since then, the region has followed step-by-step practical procedures to accomplish such connectivity. Declaration made at the ASEAN summit by all of the ASEAN leaders has since been implemented by relevant ministers from transportation, communication, logistics, trade, tourism to investment. Work on soft and hard infrastructures has been achieved to sustain the flow of road and air communications throughout, particularly in the mainland Southeast Asia. Actually, it started when I had a bilateral meeting with Japan's Minister of Trade during the ASEAN Plus 3 and then at the Plus 6 forum. Japan offered an aid to push for the apparently Southern Economic Corridor, starting from Ho Chi Minh City through Phnom Penh, then Lam Chabang Port of Thailand, and ends at Chennai Port, India. Obviously, there was no Dawei of Myanmar yet at that time, as the document was still on the table. Dawei used to be the link that was missing. I reported directly to the Prime Minister. At the time was Mr. Abhisit Vejchajiva about this missing link, how Dawei could actually connect better. The Japanese government realized all the process. From the bigger geopolitical scene, we can see that the connectivity between China and ASEAN is through the Greater Mekong sub-region, consisting of 6 countries: Yunnan, China, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. To engage with the sub-region, Japan then pushed for the economic corridor from southern Vietnam through to portal city of India like Chennai to turn it into a sub-cooperation like GMS, but engage more with Japan rather than China. South Korea has also shown some interest over this. Back then, Burma was considered as a possible western exit of the mainland Southeast Asian corridor, and as part of the 3 rings and 5 doors of regional cooperation, which has been a policy of reassembling 3 regional blocks: Bay of Bengal Initiative, Greater Mekong Sub-region, and Ayeyarwady Chao Phraya Mekong Economic Cooperation Strategy. So I proposed to the government that it was significant to consider not just a possible Dawei, but a reality. Without Dawei project, regional cooperation through Southern Corridor would not have come real, and there would not be such a thing called Mekong Economic Corridor linking Indochina and India together, like it once historically happened. Prime Minister Abhisit Vechachiwa and President Thein Sein at the time brought the project to the bilateral meeting table and the accord was signed. Dawei project has since highlighted the multimodal transportation in the region, connecting Chennai of India via Ocean Bridge and Mekong region through land bridge.
Modal transportation คือไม่ใช่แค่ land bridge ทางบกอย่างเดียวแต่ว่าไปทางด้านทางน้ำด้วย
Myanmar was actually a different stage from now. It's interesting to realize now that how the transition of reforms has affected the overall sentiment of these regional linkages.
ผมเพิ่งกลับจากเนปิดอร์นะฮะได้พบรองประธานสภาผู้แทนราษฎร
I've just come back from Naypyidaw recently and had a chance to meet with the Vice President of the House of Representatives. He confirmed that all the reforms were irreversible. What was talked on the table would be implemented as it promised. One thing that will prove this real is Burma takes the ASEAN share in 2014, paving a key path toward its general election the next year, which is also the ASEAN Economic Community year. Now the country is strictly following what the democratic roadmap tells. During my frequent visits to Burma from 2009 to 2010, a lot had been going on in the country, and there was a sign that one day Western sanctions would be removed. I reported this to the government at that time. We all realized. ASEAN as a bloc realized and supported the reform. When I went to Washington to meet up with their House of Representatives, many agreed that sanctions were no point in vain, especially in this new era of multilateral cooperation. Sanctions never shed light on new developments in countries that need it the most, but rather they would lag behind. ASEAN as a grouping has supported Burma's roadmap to democracy, and this is why the reason is grounding enough for Western countries to consider removing all the sanctions if they still want to cooperate with the group. As of my own responsibility and the opportunity seen through neighbor, I founded the Burma Thai Business Council, supported by Thailand's Business Council, the Joint Standing Committee on Commerce, Industry and Banking, as well as the Union of Myanmar Federation of Chambers of Commerce. Since its foundation, our contributions have continuously included trade missions, business missions, and business matching.
ลองยกตัวอย่างให้ฟังได้ไหมคะลุงที่เทรดมิชชั่นอะไรคือมีอะไรเป็นผลงานเป็นรูปธรรมอะไรออกมาบ้างคะที่ตอนนี้การแลกเปลี่ยนกัน
เป็นการสร้างเวทีแห่งโอกาส
ค่ะ
This is actually a platform to showcase opportunities which are correlated between trade, investment, logistics, and tourism. We have had bilateral meetings with the UMFCCI on a monthly basis. And what have come out of the meetings include joint venture investments between Thailand and Myanmar, as well as trade exhibitions held regularly in both countries. Gem and Jewelry exhibition is one of the biggest trade fairs held just recently. Thai conglomerates such as CP and Sapat have already expanded their business links in Myanmar by joint venturing with local partnerships. And as we all know that Thai investors have supported the Myanmar government to expand and establish industrial estate zone and economic zones. Dawei Special Economic Zone is just one example. Those surrounding Yangon are worth addressing.
ยังไม่รวมถึงเขตเศรษฐกิจพิเศษที่ทวาย
Kun Alongkorn reveals how the foreign investment law has been modernized to fit the new economic push, as well as how the special economic zones could be triggered by a new act of parliament on FDI law.
จริงๆต้องยอมรับว่าเรื่องของการทำให้ทันสมัยสำหรับ
We have to admit that the Myanmar government has put an effort for the past 3 years to modernize the new foreign trade and investment law supporting FDIs. Every step along the parliamentary process has taken a very cautioned pace. Before the House opening session of this quasi-civilian government, in January 2010.
พระราชบัญญัติ
The first act of parliament was enacted to foster the establishment of special economic zones and Davos economic zone, and it has since been implemented. This has reflected a sign of consistency in policy implementation and bill amendments to handle and support fast-pacing economic development, as seen recently after the opening up of the country. Truthfully, one main problem remains. It is all to do with the massive differences in the Jad currency trading in the black market against that of the official market. The currency has caused major difficult conditions for foreign investments. But since the government launched a new currency regime, bringing in a managed float of the Jad back in April, you believe it or not, that was the boldest economic reform ever taken, resulting in today's Jad stability. It could be even more stable than the euro right now. This also bears fruit as the American Western Union took a daring approach and invested in Myanmar.
Right after the break, we'll be checking the conditions of the roads along the ASEAN economic corridors, so stay tuned.